Why is no one talking about race? So there it is. The question is out there. Why is no one talking about race? I talk about race every day for 3 hours in the beginning of the day, and I write about race twice a week, once in Newsworks for WHYY, and then I might do a commentary about race based on what I wrote about race in Newsworks. And then I write about race in the Daily News on Wednesday. So I was hoping to get a little bit of a break. But, I mean, in all seriousness, this stuff begins before kids even make it into juvenile facilities. Black kids are more likely to be suspended than white kids when they're in preschool. And if a kid is suspended twice, they're more likely to drop out. And if they drop out, they're more likely to go to jail. And if they go to jail, they're more likely to go back to jail. So race permeates this before the kids even get into these juvenile facilities. So I'll ask Rich about that first, and then Johnny.
I don't know if I'm the best person, but my camera speaks to that issue. And I could tell you that probably 88% of the kids don't belong there at all. Maybe 12% of the kids are kids you should be afraid of and really need treatment and really need isolation from society to some extent. When I look at these kids, they're all black. Vinny Schiraldi, who's now up at the Kennedy School, is in charge of the Washington, D.C. system. He said he was there for 3 years, never saw a white face. So when you look at these kids, they're all kids of color. And they're all kids that have no voice, that in a very minuscule way I'm able to give a voice, from families with no resources and communities without any power. So when you take a look at the zip code of Kensington and know that the kids from that zip code are much more likely to go to detention and prison rather than college, it's not the kids' fault, it's society's fault. How do you change that? I have to defer to other people more knowledgeable than I.
John.
Yeah, just a few things. To the 60 days, I did a total 3 years in solitary. 60 of those days were as an adolescent. I spent a total 13 years in prison for a robbery that I committed when I was 21 years old. Throughout my travels, I did see a huge disproportionate imbalance in the races. Where it's the entire prison population, but specifically, who was going to the box, what they were going for, and for how long they were going for. I can tell you, from first-hand experience, that racism is very rampant behind on the other side of the barbed wire fence. I've been called, the N-word to my face a bunch of times. And I can also tell you that, specifically for kids, I think that the problem is that we see one group of people, specifically, people probably that are not of color, as more deserving of the compassion of, preserving their dignity and humanity than young kids of color. And that reflects itself in our policies, and definitely reflects itself inside who's inside that cell and what it is they're doing.
Okay. Dr. Goldstein, I want to ask you this question, which came from our audience. Should we be treating children together with their parents? Would that improve results by allowing kids to work on family issues? And what else works?
Sure, and there's quite a bit of research showing that really comprehensive family treatment that's involving parents, sometimes grandparents, sometimes siblings, aunts, uncles, whoever is important in the child's life is critical. And this comes back, again, to what we're talking about before. I think this is important no matter what age it is. People don't exist on an island. They're part of a larger system. They have social support, hopefully. But regardless, they're going to be interacting with people. And that's true for anyone, but for kids in particular, their lives are so dependent and intertwined with parents or guardians or whoever they're living with, whoever their social support. The treating them by themselves, again, is this, it's not the way you want them to exist. Right? If you're going to provide a treatment to improve their functioning, part of functioning is their interactions with other people. And many times these are really negative interactions, and so how do you work together to improve them? Just removing them from their home and their communities and putting them into a facility where they're locked away. And even if they learn skills in that setting, and they learn information, they learn how to improve their interactions with others, very, very, very difficult to transfer that knowledge and experience and skills back home or back to school or back to their communities. But that's something, transfer of knowledge and skills is something that's hard for all of us to do, but when we think of the long histories of negative interaction many of these kids and families have had, it's critically important to provide treatment together, not separately. And for those where they had really supportive interactions, it's also important to have that able to continue when they're in settings that are difficult.
So another question from our audience, and we'll stick with you, Dr. Goldstein. What about those juveniles who are a danger to themselves or others?
Clearly there's, as you just talked about, there are a small number. So not most of these kids who are in facilities, but some of them are presenting dangers for periods of time. Those need to be dealt with. Does isolation help with that? Over long term, no. Most kids, we actually know it increases anger, it increases future aggression, in addition to mental health problems. So how can you proactively deal with that? And it's really about using treatments or approaches that we work, trying to use supportive settings that certainly are still providing protective mechanisms or not denying them access to treatment access to stimulation, access to engagement in positive activities, which can really be quite helpful improving their general functioning.
So do children in solitary receive education, A, and B, do they have the right to receive education? And I'm going to ask that in two halves. First half to Johnny, and then the second half to Marsha.
Yeah, in my experience, education looks like the teacher walks by your cell once a week and gives you a handout and says, fill it out, I'll be back next week to fill it out. Of course, on policy, the paper says, oh, receive this, that, third, but in practice, that's the way that looks like. I remember my pen had enough ink to write exactly 2.5 pages of paper. And so when we talk about, okay, is there education maybe on the surface or maybe on paper it looks like it, but in practice it really doesn't even work that way. If I have a question, learning is an interactive process. You learn something, ask questions, you challenge. And solitary doesn't allow for that. And even the space itself, when you're talking to someone through bulletproof class and you're screaming and have to put your ear to the door every time they speak, that in itself is not conducive to learning. I've seen group therapy sessions where the person hangs up, talk to the psychiatrist, I ask myself, how is it on one hand we say that we value education, things like dignity and human worth, but on the other hand, treat people so inhumanely and as if they're worthless. When I was in box as a kid, not only did I not use the handouts, I used the back of the handouts to write whatever else I wanted to. So they didn't receive any anger management while I was there, any drug treatment while I was there. I was there for a fight. You would think anger management would be there. Drug treatment while I was there. The psychiatrist come by once a week and she literally used to ask me, do you feel like killing yourself? Which I'm a psychiatrist, but I don't think that's the best way to ask that question. Is it deserving of course that we all have a fundamental human right to be educated. Unfortunately that our laws don't reflect that in a lot of different spaces.
Mm-hmm. Do they have the right legally, Marsha?
Yeah, so this is another example where I think the rights don't match the practice. Children in this country, in a state like Pennsylvania, every state has a compulsory school age below which children are required to go to school. And I actually believe, as we've talked about low-hanging fruit, that in my view this is the lowest hanging fruit, that children who are in facilities who are compulsory school age absolutely have a right to education. We set up these bizarre, both physical and virtual and imaginary walls between kid and what's on the other side of that cell that we imagine somehow erects a barrier to delivering education. But if you think about it, what is it about being on the other side of that door that prevents you from receiving educational materials, that prevents someone from interacting with you in the cell, not on the other side of the cell, that prevents you from even engaging with the general population in those opportunities? A substantial number of children in the correctional system, the juvenile justice system, have special education needs. We have federal law that requires that children with special education needs have a right to an individualized education program up through their 21st birthday, and that is a right that is not in any way limited by their incarceration. That's what federal law requires. So in this respect, I would say that both state and federal law provides rights. Institutions interfere with delivery of those services and with the implementation of those rights. In a sense, because they can, because they get away with it. Nobody came and worried about what you weren't receiving when you were at Rikers. But as I said, as a lawyer, to me, these cases that we can win because those rights are pretty explicit.
Right. So we're going to end pretty soon. I do want to ask these couple questions Richard Brooks I think are important. How did you gain access to so many facilities where children were being held in solitary? Was the pushback from facility administrators? And then this one, did you enter into the profession of photography knowing that you wanted to bear witness and display social injustice?
The first question of how I got in.
How to get into those facilities? Was there pushback from the administrators?
The pushback from the administrators was ridiculous. I grew up in New York. I never knew how to take no for an answer. And when you realize that lives are at stake, it just becomes that more compelling. The only place, as I told Jimmy, that there's also effort versus reward. The only place I think I almost have to give up on is Rikers. Those sons of bitches won't let me enter anything. And everything about this world is very counterintuitive. You think New York is going to be liberal and open and transparent. Exactly the reverse. I'm much more well-contested loose Alabama than I am in New York City. And what was your second question?
The second question is, did you enter the field of photography knowing that you wanted to bear witness and expose social injustices?
There was a great article in the New York Times Magazine this past week by Chuck Lowe who said that you shouldn't afraid your later years as an artist because that's when you could take all the chances. And somebody asked me, how did I begin this? About 10 years ago, it was really when the first kid in El Paso Juvenile Detention Center started talking to me when I was doing architectural work on a different project. And the question really isn't how do you start, but when you realize you're the conduit for these very fragile voices, how do you stop? So I'm not sure how I got involved in this. I'm almost 70 years old. And this work is literally punishing, emotionally, physically. I hadn't sold a photograph in about 10 years. And it's great. My wife, who's in the audience, is wonderful. It's hard for me to explain to her how I'm in absolute bliss when I'm sitting on the floor of a cell with my shoes off and listening to a 12 or 13-year-old kid share a story with me. It's nirvana. How I can do this is perfect. I never want to stop.
Okay. So I want to ask this question to Johnny. Someone posed the question, how do we elevate voices like yours? And how do we shift the narrative to prioritizing treatment and rehabilitation and away from punishment and criminalization?
That's a very good question. I think part of the problem is that we don't see people as people, and it's reflective in our language, right? We say, when you go inside of a jail, we say, how many heads do you have? How many bodies do you have? We use words like criminal, inmate, sex offender, murderer, right? These are all dehumanized language, right? So there's things that I can do to a criminal that I can't do to a son. There's things I can do to an inmate that I can't do to a father, right? So the first thing that you can definitely do is describe people as people. People say, well, you don't want to be called inmate. Well, you call me what I am, a person. Because now when we start to humanize people, when we start to see people as people, it's easier to treat them as such. So I think that's part of the big issue. As far as augmented voices, you do that by being inclusive, by involving people. Don't speak for me, speak with me, And I can't tell you the number of different spaces where people are writing about us, not talking with us. And we're like, oh, that's not accurate, And you avoid that by being inclusive. Hey, what do you think about this? Would you like to be part of this? Contrary to popular belief, people, and I want to quote a good friend of mine, Glenn Martin out of New York. He says, the people closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. And we think about journalism and things like that, is to come as close as possible to the truth. This is how you can sit out of a cell and talk to a kid directly. Your ear is right next to the truth. And then having integrity and not only sharing that information with people, also not just an easy crowd. This is an easy crowd. People kind of get it. Go into the fire. Go into the fire where people say, what, I like solitary. We need solitary, and then make the argument, because those are the spaces where our voices needed the most, and therein lies exactly how we can move this needle forward. The conversation is going to get a whole lot more difficult before it gets easier, and we need to go in spaces, where Donald Trumps of the world, and say, this is we don't need this, and here's a person whose personal experience or whatever through the story and through the story of course they get humanized, to hear exactly the horrors of it, and then exactly how we address it. There's a legislator right now somewhere saying that you want solitary here. Even if you didn't say that out your mouth, because you said it with tax dollars. You said it by not voting or voting. So definitely, to echo what was said earlier, exercise your right as an American citizen and say, I refuse to support this. And additionally, for criminals say this is a problem of, if we don't have solitary, then what are we going to do with kids, And I get it. Some kids just don't play one in the sandbox with others. But I would definitely one of them. And I can tell you that I would argue that you can separate a person from the general population and not isolate them. I would also argue that there is never a time in which you have to treat someone inhumanely in order to hold them accountable. You can hold them accountable, but just not necessarily treat them inhumanely in the course of holding them accountable.
Okay. All right. So this will be the last question, because I think it's a necessary question, because I really want to end there. This is a necessary question. What are the next steps, Marsha, for the Juvenile Law Center in addressing this issue of juvenile solitary confinement?
So Juvenile Law Center is actually participating and working with colleagues around the country as part of a campaign effort to address and end solitary confinement. You saw in the video, Stop Solitary, there's a hashtag, a campaign, a website that's aimed at this. And it's really trying to engage all the stakeholders in the process, from the political process, the executive branch, the legislative branch, facility administrators, who can learn that there are other ways to manage what is sometimes risky and aggressive behavior in a facility. Juvenile Law Center itself, in addition to engaging with its partners, we are also always looking for opportunities for litigation. As I said, we've done some litigation in New Jersey and are looking at this issue in some other jurisdictions. So I think the good news is there's a lot of energy around this issue right now. I think there's a growing realization in this larger criminal justice reform conversation that solitary confinement is simply unacceptable. It's so inhumane and so harmful that as a nation, as a society, as citizens, we cannot tolerate it. And so I am cautiously optimistic that we are going to end this practice, but we're going to end it by engaging every part of the system that participates in it, by making sure that they cease that participation.
All right. Marsha Levick, Deputy Director, Chief Counsel, and co-founder of the Juvenile Law Center, Dr. Naomi Goldstein, Professor of Psychology at Drexel University, Johnny Perez, a non-attorney advocate at the Urban Justice Center Mental Health Project, Rich Ross, a photographer, researcher, and professor of art. Please give our panelists a hand. I want to thank you all for coming. I'm Solomon Jones, 900 AM WRD and Philadelphia Daily News. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.